Justin Haskins is a guy that I found years and years ago when he was very young, and he started a website, Stopping Socialism, and I was intrigued by this young man and what he was doing, and I've been following him for a while. He's now the editorial director and research fellow at the Heartland Institute, and he's a co-author of the new book, The Great Reset, which comes out next week. Justin, welcome to the program.
Happy New Year, Glenn. How are you?
Well, it would be more Happy New Year if I wasn't starting it with what I know we're going to start talking about right now.
Yeah, let's kill that New Year's optimism right off the bat. Let's just smother it in the bed. Let's just kill it right off the bat.
It's like old Yeller in the barn. Like, please don't make me shoot him, but we have to put him down. On December, what was it, 6th or 8th, something like that, a 10-country...
I believe it's first week of December, yep.
A 10-country simulation of a major cyber attack on the global financial system in an attempt to increase cooperation that could help minimize any potential damage to financial markets and banks was run. Now, this happened in Israel, but it was actually supposed to happen at the Dubai World Expo, which, gosh, what was happening at the Dubai World Expo?
That was where they were having their great narrative event with the World Economic Forum and other people involved with the Great Reset, which is a whole nother incredibly creepy part of this whole Great Reset movement.
Okay. Tell me the significance of what the Great Resetters were doing in this war game.
Right. So the reason why this is, I think, incredibly important is because what we've learned from studying the Great Reset is that the people who support this have for many years been laying the foundation for implementing this whole new system of essentially a China model of capitalism / authoritarianism. 21st century fascism is how we phrase it in the book, and I think that's the best way to articulate it.
It is.
And what they've been looking for are crises that they can use to help move the ball forward on this. So climate change was something they've been trying for a very long time. They're still trying it. COVID came along, and that was the golden opportunity for them. But now, as you said in the lead up to this, COVID is sort of fading, and they need something else. And what I think is going on with this war game is they're looking for, they're testing out different ways where they could move the ball forward on the Great Reset using various kinds of crises. And this one was cyber attacks. Now, if you remember earlier in 2021, there was that attack on the Colonial Pipeline where hackers literally held this gigantic pipeline in the United States ransom, one of the biggest pipelines in the world. And they were forced to, the pipeline was forced to pay them in Bitcoin, basically, to get the access to the pipeline back. And as soon as that happened, the World Economic Forum and others started rolling out this narrative of this possibility that there could be this cyber pandemic. That's the phrase they use, cyber pandemic, that could shut down the entire global economy. And the only way that we would be able to fight this off is if we all coordinate and if we build this globalist sort of multilateral movement to protect our financial institutions. It's the exact same kind of thing they were saying about pandemics prior to COVID-19. So they had this big war game meeting in December. They've been planning it for a year. Major players from all over the world were there, including the International Monetary Fund, the United States sent a Treasury official there, Switzerland, Germany, the United Kingdom, United Arab Emirates. All of these people have been involved in the Great Reset in one form or another, the World Bank, Bank of International Settlements, and they ran a bunch of war games where cyber attacks would occur that would on the financial system mixed with fake news. This is what they said, fake news that would cause people to lose faith in the financial system, and that the only way that they could fix it would be for them to build these multilateral frameworks that would help them come together to stop these issues. They called it collective strength.
Okay, now listen, I want to quote some things here. The banks are appealing for emergency liquidity assistance in a multitude of currencies to put to a halt the chaos as counterparties withdraw their funds and limit access to liquidity, leaving the banks in disarray and ruin. The participants discussed multilateral policies to respond to the crisis, including a coordinated bank holiday. A bank holiday, when they say coordinated, throughout the entire West, not just the Western Hemisphere, the entire West, all countries. Debt repayment grace periods, swap repro agreements, and, listen to this, coordinated delinking from major currencies. What does that mean?
I think that means they're trying to figure out a way to roll out an international currency. That's what I think it means. Probably an international digital currency, which is something that people in the Great Reset movement, like Mark Carney, who was heavily involved in many of these meetings that's been going on in Glasgow and elsewhere with the World Economic Forum, I believe that that's what they ultimately want, and that they're looking for a way to try to make this happen. And I think that they're running different scenarios for how this could occur, and these so-called cyber attacks and fake news, the proliferation of fake news causing some kind of financial catastrophe, supposedly, are some of the scenarios that they're thinking could be used as a way to roll out an international currency. I think that's the only way to understand what a coordinated delinking from major currencies is.
What does that mean to the average person, their savings, their salary, and everything else, if there's, quote, a major delinking from major currencies?
Well, what we've seen in the past is anytime there has been a switch to a currency, when they've gotten rid of an old kind of currency and they've moved to a new sort of currency. And this is every time we've seen this people lose 50% of the value of their money, essentially. Sometimes more. That's when
it happened with the gold certificates and the silver certificates. If you're my age, you might remember seeing silver certificates that would from time to time kind of come through, and it meant that dollar was linked to that amount of silver in the Fed Treasury or that amount of gold. We got rid of that currency, redesigned it, and we have a new currency. They delinked dollar for dollar at that point, and people lost a lot of their savings, a lot of the value. You can go from 40 to, I think it's as much as 65%. But this one, the Treasury has already said that if a delinking or a currency changes, this one will be based on social justice. So if you're white and very, very wealthy, you might get 35 cents on the dollar. But if you're, underprivileged, in a wheelchair, only one eye, without a job, you might get $1.10 for your dollar. Redistribution of wealth. And that's directly from the Treasury.
Right. And the digital, and if it becomes a digital currency, which I think almost every person who's an expert who's been following this believes is the next phase, if there are going to move to an international currency, it's going to be some sort of digital currency. Then you'd be able to do all sorts of crazy social justice things, because you'd be able to not only track how people are spending their money in a very centralized way, but you could actually control how people are spending their money, because you could say, no, you can't spend your money on, say, a firearm, or you can't spend too much of your money on white-owned businesses or something like that. I mean, you could do stuff like that if you really wanted to.
The most important thing here, Justin, is I don't think people understand that we are in new modern monetary theory. We're already doing that, which is just print the money. It doesn't matter, just print the money. But what everybody forgets is the second part of modern monetary theory. The way to control inflation is to be able to control the companies, which is part of the Great Reset, being able to have a golden share on the boards of all of these companies, where the government can override the chairperson and the shareholders and say, our golden share says you're not going to make that car, or you're going to make this car, and you're going to make twice the amount you say. They not only control the companies, but they have to control how people spend their money. And that's where digital currency is an absolute must.
Yes, that's exactly right. There's no real way to micromanage an economy if there's any freedom at all in that marketplace. There's no way to micromanage it without a digital currency. You need to have a digital currency to micromanage it. And if you've been following the modern monetary theory movement, which far left-wing groups have been involved with now for many, many years, it's very clear that their only solution to the question of, well, how can we just print endless amounts of money without causing runaway inflation is we're going to build a superstructure that allows the government to micromanage every aspect of the economy through price controls and other things. And then that way, if energy prices are driving inflation and energy prices are getting too high, we can just turn the little dial in our command center in Washington, D.C. or in Davos or wherever, and we can lower the price of energy, or we can take money out of the economy seemingly overnight. Well, how do you do that kind of stuff without having a digital currency? Makes all of that much easier to do, much more possible, in a way that I think you could theoretically control the economy and maybe even help limit inflation to some extent. But the expense of that is going to be you're going to have absolutely no economic freedom at all. And this, I think, is the long-term plan. And that's why they're wargaming all of this stuff out, because they're trying to figure out a way to get to that. But they can't just say, OK, everybody, we're just going to switch currencies tomorrow. That's going to cause a massive financial collapse. It's going to cause panic. They need to have a justification for it. And the justification is that they're wargaming in this particular scenario is cyber attacks and fake news and misinformation and all of that. But I'm willing to bet they have a long list of other potential crises that would lead them to the exact same conclusion, because this is where they need to go. They don't know exactly how they're going to get there, but I don't think. But this is where they need to end up, with a global international digital currency or something like that.